guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming all of the books I read in August, and this is going to be really casual. I have not been able to get many videos out this month because it's been crazy. So let's get started. I read these books, and the first book that I believe I got through was Jane of Lantern Hill, which I loved. This book is by Ellen Montgomery, and she also wrote Anne of Green Gables. This is about a little girl who she thinks all her life that her dad is dead. She lived with her mom and her grandma. And then she finds out, this is all on the back, she finds out that her dad is alive, and then she ends up going and spending time with him, and it's about the relationship and the relationship between her and her mom and the grandma. And it's actually really good. I love this. I thought Jane was a super sweet character, and the story is just really sweet. Almost, I would say the ending might be a little too idealistic, but I do love it. It was 5 stars for me. I thought it was a great book and a quick read, so I definitely recommend. The next book that I read was a reread of Dark Tempest, that I'll put here, by Annette Marie, which is the sequel to Red Winter. And I like the series. It's fun. It's got a lot of interesting Japanese lore, and it's an interesting story. I like it. But I have read this series before, so it was super quick for me to reread. I also read, it's in the middle of the pack, Hearthstone, which was a buddy read that I did with some girls from my Instagram that I'm friends with. And this was a really fun book. This is Pride and Prejudice with dragons. Not the dragons as main characters. The main characters are still people. This was confusing when I was explaining to some people. This is Pride and Prejudice with the main characters, like Darcy. He's not named Darcy, but is a dragon rider. And there's a lot of really fun things you can do with a story like that. I love this book. I thought it was super cute, super fun. I will say, if you're a big fan of Kitty, small spoiler, she definitely had a different outcome with this book. Yeah, so there's some interesting things that this author did with the story, but it is basically a very true retelling of Pride and Prejudice with the fantasy element of dragons and dragon riders and all of that, but it's really good and I really liked it. And then we get to, okay. If you've seen my videos, you know I read Twilight and Midnight Sun. I'm not going to talk about this very long. I don't like these books. I have changed. I am 34 years old. Did I love these books when I was 19 when I first read them? Yes. Which even then was a little old. But whatever. I still loved them, and I reread them many times and just love the characters of Twilight. So this series was very special to me. I just really enjoyed it. But now that I'm an adult, I don't. Like, now that I'm older, have kids, it's just my reading style, like what I like has changed, what I'm interested in has changed, and I really find myself having a very hard time with insta-love stories, and especially the kind of stalkery-ish love that we see in Twilight. Midnight Sun is Twilight from Edward's perspective. This just came out. I didn't like it. It's extremely long. It's very, very detailed, and Edward's thoughts were in his head. The thing I'll say, and that's the same thing I said in my review of these books, they should have done books about Alice. Alice is besides Charlie, who I love, is really the only character that has a super interesting story, and her story could have been so good. The one chapter where we see how Alice sees the future and changes certain things, and you see it happening, is a really good chapter. The whole book should have been Alice. I wish they would do a series that is Alice, because these are not good, in my opinion. If you like them, I'm happy, because I wish I could have just enjoyed them for nostalgia's sake, but certain things I just couldn't get over. So then I did a whole, well, we'll get into that. Those will be all my wrap up. So I read Stranger Maiden on my Kindle. I'll put it here. This, I believe, is a debut novel by this author, and it was good. Very interesting. I like the story. I like the premise of it, and I thought the characters were pretty interesting and fairly well developed. I also thought that there were some interesting concepts introduced, and the whole story was handled really well. I will say the ending killed me. I was not happy with the ending. If you do not want to read a book with a very abrupt ending, I wouldn't recommend this. I think it was a really good book, and I really wish that the ending was different, but it's not. And I would still recommend it because I do think it's a good book. But there were some things left unresolved, and I'm kind of frustrated that the author didn't wrap it up a little bit more neatly. But I will say, since it's a debut novel, I'm giving some grace with that because I just am. So, I was riding the nostalgia train hard. That sounds bad, doesn't it? Okay. Anyway, I read these books. These are American Girl books. Meet Kirsten, and Kirsten learns a lesson. And these books are very sentimental. I actually was a huge Samantha fan, if you know American Girl. My best friend had brown hair, brown eyes, so Samantha was my favorite when I was a child. But I also love Kirsten, and I did have the doll. I had Samantha too. So these books are good. I mean, they're like kid books, but I just liked reading them. They're really kind of cute. And I like that in the back there's history about, if you don't know the story, she comes over from Sweden, and she's on the boat in the beginning, and there's actually this is handled pretty well, I felt like. And the hardships of immigrating to America and the things faced, and it's actually, there's some really sad things that happen, and I feel like it's good for children to know what people go through, especially with these people immigrating from Sweden and the hardships that they face. And it has in the back a little section that says a peek into the past, and it will tell you about the ships and the conditions and what they faced, and it asks questions. So if you have a little girl, I'd say these are probably 7 to 12 maybe, I don't know, but they're just fun, and it was nice for nostalgia. Then make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so the last 3 books I read all fall into a category, and it's for a video that I'm doing on girl mystery novels. So you have Nancy Drew, Trixie Belden, and Mandy. So I will explain. I read the first books of all of these series. So I never read Nancy Drew before. I didn't grow up with Nancy Drew. I grew up with Trixie Belden because that's what my mom read. And I will say, after reading the first Nancy Drew book, it doesn't really speak to me the same, because Nancy Drew is much more perfect. She is very sweet. She is 18. She's rich. So there's nothing wrong with Nancy. I like her. She seems nice, and she seems like a good character. But this book, I think, was the weaker of the 3 that I read, only because I feel like this intro didn't do much with her character, and I've heard that later on she has much more, interesting adventures. So I'm going to keep reading these because I'm interested, and I feel like, since I didn't read them as a kid, I'm kind of want to see what I missed out on. Mandy is the historical fiction Christian version of Nancy Drew. So she is I think 12, turns 13 in the book maybe. Or maybe she's 11 and turns 12. I don't remember. But she's young, and her dad dies, and she goes to try and get her help from her uncle. This book deals with a missing will and things. All of them deal with a missing will. The first books of all 3 of these series. I don't know why the first book always has to deal with a missing will, but it does. So she goes, and she has friends, and that was the other thing about Nancy Drew. She doesn't have a big group of friends. It's just her in the first book. Whereas Mandy has a lot of friends helping her, and a very devoted kind of boyfriend. I mean, it's not really, but it's not really romantic at this age. It's just, he is talking to her about, maybe someday when we're older, and it's like that puppy love. It's cute. So I like this book. Mainly this is nostalgia. I read this book series has 40 books, and I read these when I was younger. So I enjoyed it, but it's something I would have my daughter read because they're fun, and if you like mystery, it's cute for kids. My favorite of all of these is going to be Trixie Belden, and she stands up over time much better, I feel like, than the others. She is not rich, she has siblings, and for the time that these were written, her story is much more realistic. She lives on a farm, she has a neighbor who moves in and has horses and is wealthy, and that girl becomes her best friend, Honey. So she also has a group of friends. She's not a go it alone like Nancy Drew. She has friends, and then another friend is Jim, who will later become a kind of love interest. But Trixie is 13, I believe, and she has a way more interesting story, in my opinion. The first book is, I mean, it has so much stuff in it. She's got the introduction of all the people, but then there's also a runaway and a missing will and a haunted mansion and these, this supposed millionaire, like eccentric millionaire who's stashed his fortune and they're trying to look for it. And there's a plane crash and all this crazy stuff that's like more intense. And this like isn't a super suspenseful book. It's written for kids, but it's much more suspenseful in my opinion than Nancy Drew. And I don't know why I'm like sorry. To me, it just worked on a level that Nancy Drew didn't, because Nancy Drew felt very removed. I mean, we hear a lot about her looks and her clothes, and this story had a lot more heart to me. Like at one point, small spoiler, Trixie has to save her brother from a snake bite, and it's just there's much more. She has much more knowledge. She's much more like she knows more about the world. She's not a sheltered rich girl, and I'm not saying that to be like down on Nancy Drew. It's just a totally different take on things. And I really did enjoy Trixie the best out of those three. I have a whole video coming analyzing all the different things, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So those are all the books that I read. It was a really light month for me. I started Throne of Glass and haven't made it through yet. Struggling, but it's just been really busy. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just not super in love. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you read this month, and I hope to talk to you soon. Please like and subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye.